داره موشک میاد پایین. برو.
At around 4:10 a.m., long before sunrise, the quiet runway of a U.S. strategic bomber base suddenly comes alive. A combat readiness signal has just been issued after escalating attacks in the Middle East. Within minutes, the silent airfield transforms into a controlled rush of activity. Floodlights illuminate the bomber ramp, maintenance vehicles start moving across the concrete, and ground crews hurry toward the massive aircraft waiting in the darkness. Parked across the flight line are several B-52 Stratofortress bombers, one of the most powerful long-range strike aircraft ever built. Unlike fighter jets that carry only a few weapons, a single B-52 can carry more than 70,000 pounds of bombs and cruise missiles. The aircraft is designed to fly thousands of miles, launch devastating strikes, and return without ever needing to land near the battlefield. And right now, crews are preparing these bombers for combat operations. Maintenance teams immediately begin inspection procedures. Panels along the bomber's long fuselage are opened while avionics technicians power up the aircraft's electrical systems. Inside the cockpit, displays flicker to life as navigation computers begin loading mission routes and targeting data. Outside the aircraft, crew chiefs perform a slow walk around the bomber. They check landing gear assemblies, hydraulic lines, wing flaps, radar domes, and the bomber's 8 turbofan engines mounted beneath its wings. Every engine intake is inspected carefully to ensure nothing could damage the engines during takeoff. Nearby, weapons teams arrive pushing loading carts carrying precision-guided munitions. Hydraulic lifts raise weapons beneath the bomber's wings. Some are mounted on external pylons while others are loaded into the internal weapons bay beneath the fuselage. Long-range cruise missiles are secured into position and connected to the aircraft's targeting computers. Technicians inspect the mounting lugs, release mechanisms, and electronic connections that link the weapons to the bomber's fire control systems. Each missile must respond perfectly to the bomber's computer before the aircraft can be cleared for launch. Across the ramp, the exact same preparation process is happening on several other bombers. Strategic bomber missions rarely rely on just one aircraft. Multiple bombers often launch together so they can strike different targets during the same operation. While weapons crews work outside, the B-52 flight crews arrive carrying mission folders and navigation charts. The crew climbs into the aircraft through the forward hatch and begins powering up the cockpit systems. Unlike smaller aircraft, the B-52 requires a larger crew to operate. Pilots manage the flight controls while other crew members handle navigation, electronic warfare systems, and weapons operations during the mission. Inside the cockpit, switches begin flipping one by one. Navigation systems initialize. Radar displays activate. Communication radios connect with command centers coordinating the strike mission. Once the avionics checks are complete, the bomber receives its final targeting data. The B-52 does not always fly directly over heavily defended airspace. Instead, it can launch long-range cruise missiles from hundreds of miles away, allowing the bomber to strike targets while remaining outside dangerous air defense zones. Back on the ramp, another critical step begins. Fuel trucks pull up beside the bombers. Large hoses connect beneath the wings, and thousands of gallons of jet fuel begin flowing into the aircraft's tanks. Long-range strike missions require enormous amounts of fuel, and B-52 bombers often meet aerial refueling tankers during the flight to extend their range even further. Across the base, the pace of activity continues increasing. At nearby hangars, fighter aircraft are also being prepared. Mechanics inspect radar systems while weapons crews mount missiles beneath the wings. These fighters may escort the bombers or conduct additional strikes once the operation begins. Back on the bomber ramp, the final inspection is now underway. Crew chiefs perform one last walk-around check. Control surfaces are tested, weapons panels are secured, landing gear doors are locked into place. Once everything is confirmed, the bomber is cleared for engine start. Inside the cockpit, the pilots begin the ignition sequence. One engine starts, then another. Soon, all 8 engines roar to life beneath the massive wings. Sending waves of hot exhaust across the runway. Moments later, the bomber receives clearance to taxi. The aircraft slowly rolls forward across the tarmac, guided by ground personnel using illuminated wands. Several additional bombers line up behind it along the taxiway, preparing to depart one after another. When the runway is clear, the B-52 positions itself for takeoff. The pilots advance the throttles and the engines surge with power. The bomber accelerates down the runway before lifting into the sky, its wide wings carrying it steadily upward into the early morning darkness. Within minutes, more bombers follow. Hours later, the aircraft approach their designated launch positions. Within minutes of the cruise missile launches, multiple impact zones began lighting up across Iran. Radar stations on the outskirts of Tehran were among the first targets hit. These facilities are responsible for tracking incoming aircraft and coordinating the country's air defense network. Several explosions were reported in rapid succession, followed by power outages in nearby districts. But the strikes did not stop there. Missile production facilities located in military complexes outside the capital were also struck. These sites are believed to house equipment used to assemble ballistic missiles and store rocket fuel components. Satellite monitoring later showed large fires burning inside these compounds, with smoke columns rising high enough to be visible from several kilometers away. Emergency crews were quickly dispatched to the affected areas. Videos circulating online showed long convoys of fire trucks and military vehicles rushing toward the sites, while security forces blocked access roads. In several districts near Tehran, residents reported hearing secondary explosions hours after the initial strikes, a sign that ammunition or stored fuel may have ignited after the first impact. Iranian state media initially described the explosions as limited damage, but local footage painted a different picture. Large sections of industrial facilities appeared heavily damaged, with collapsed roofs and burning storage areas visible in satellite images the following morning. In some locations, power infrastructure connected to military bases was also disrupted, leaving nearby neighborhoods temporarily without electricity. Meanwhile, Iranian air defense units attempted to respond. Surface-to-air missile batteries around the capital reportedly launched several interceptors after detecting incoming threats. Bright streaks were seen across the night sky as air defense systems fired toward the incoming missiles. However, many of the missiles still reached their targets. Military analysts say this type of strike is designed to overwhelm defenses by hitting multiple locations within a short time window. While one area is responding to the first explosions, additional strikes can occur elsewhere before defenses can reposition, and the timing of the attack appears to have been carefully planned. The strikes occurred during late-night hours when many facilities operate with reduced staff, limiting the ability of personnel to react quickly to incoming threats. In the hours following the explosions, Iranian authorities began increasing security across several major cities. Military checkpoints appeared on highways leading toward key installations. Communications around certain districts were briefly restricted while authorities assessed the damage. At the same time, additional U.S. aircraft were reportedly still operating in the region, suggesting that the initial strike may have been part of a larger series of coordinated operations rather than a single isolated attack. For residents near the impacted areas, the night was far from quiet. Multiple waves of explosions, emergency sirens, and the movement of military vehicles continued into the early morning hours as crews worked to contain fires and secure the damaged sites. And as daylight approached, thick smoke continued rising from several of the targeted locations, a visible reminder that the strike had already left significant damage behind.